Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Things are moving fast in Europe, it seems right now. There is a snap election in Spain today where we might see a defeat of the government of the socialist Prime Minister Sanchez and a coalition between the right-wing Vox Party and the Spanish People's Party will replace it. This is just one more example of a European country that has grown sick and tired of this dominant position of a left-wing globalist elite that is dictating in every aspect of people's lives what is right and wrong. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, is trying to create the new human and a new society in which we will all be happier, of course. In today's short presentation, I want to go over the current situation in Spain, the polling data, and also give you my German perspective on the country and of some of the issues. It is, of course, as always, the perspective of an outside observer. Whenever I make these videos about elections or things in other countries, it might not be the same things that the people who are from that country have on the top of their list, or maybe I see it very, very differently. Okay, so let's get right into the status quo of Spain right now. Spain is ruled by the socialist Pedro Sanchez at the moment, and he is leading a minority government, so he doesn't, or his party doesn't have a majority in parliament, which is not really unusual in Spain. These minority governments are kind of usual there, but of course you need other parties that support you, and in his case these are regional parties like from the Basque territories and from the region of Catalonia that wanted to break away from Spain a couple of years ago. So that already shows you that there is not just talk of secession in Spain, it is pretty real. They had a referendum and everything. And of course, the right wing in Spain generally sees this secessionism as treasonous and is heavily against it. The right in Spain is generally in favor of a more centralized Spanish state, where all these regions that have their different languages, even there are different people, where they would have to live under a centralized Spanish state. And that is something that kind of rubs me the wrong way too as a German, I must say. As you might know, we have a federal system here in Germany where the different tribes of the German family, we have a central government in Berlin, but in our states we have a certain level of autonomy. So I might be a little biased on this point here. Spain has a bicameral parliamentary system, and in both chambers, in the Senate as well as in the Congress, seats will be filled with new parliamentarians after this election. Yeah, so after the last election in 2019, the Socialist Party had a little less than 30% of the votes, whereas the People's Party had around 20%. Then Vox, the right-wing party, hard Eurosceptic right-wing party, they had around 15% of the votes, and they are a relatively new party that broke off of the more center-right People's Party, PP. Pretty much like many AfD members were formerly CDU members in Germany, just disgruntled with the hard left policies of Angela Merkel. So what changed now, according to the polling, that is at least, it's not that Vox, that is a new party and that gained massively in the 2019 elections already. It's not like they could improve on their result. They pretty much stayed constant. It's more like the Socialist Party lost votes, and the more center-right People's Party, they gained votes, or at least in the polls. It seems like we will see what happens today. You see that in late 2021, the center-right party overtook the Socialist Party, whereas the green line here, Vox, stayed pretty much constant, and the same, the coalition partner UP, another socialist party, the coalition partner of Pedro Sanchez right now, they also stayed more or less constant. So you see that the smaller coalition partners or potential coalition partners, they maintained their share of the votes, whereas there was a change in the larger coalition party candidate, and that is the center-right party overtook the Socialist Party of Pedro Sanchez here. Now, the difference to Germany is, of course, that there is no Brandmauer against the right, as we say in Germany. I told you in many of my videos that there is this taboo topic of ever partnering up in any case, under any circumstances, with the far-right AfD party. They call that cordon sanitaire or firewall, if you want to have the direct translation from the German word Brandmauer. So what that means in Germany, there is a holy duty to isolate the AfD at all costs. And we see right now in the East that the center-right even wants to form a coalition with the former Socialist Unity Party of the GDR, the party Die Linke, a communist party. That just shows you how far they go in order to maintain this great firewall against the right. Well, as far as I have heard, this concept doesn't exist or is not practiced that way in Spain. And that means that the People's Party of Spain will probably form a coalition with Vox if the election turns out the way that the polls are predicting right now. Now, Spain for me was traditionally always a left-leaning country, basically a matriarchy where some men try to overcompensate that with machismo. However, things have changed now. Spain, even though they have structural unemployment problems, I think it goes back until the 80s. So they were in double digits unemployment basically without pause. And yes, the unemployment has gone down a little bit recently, but it is still constantly stagnating at 13% right now. And that is, in my opinion at least, a little bit too much for a large country of almost 50 million inhabitants. They are, of course, also overrun by irregular travelers who claim that they need protection there. And to me, at least as an outsider, Mr. Sanchez seems like the Spanish version of a Justin Trudeau, where he tries to make sure that there is a certain quota of female ministers in his cabinet. And also they passed a very controversial law that basically removes the burden of proof when a woman accuses a man of wrongdoing. So women never have to prove again that something was done to them. They can just point fingers at men when they change their opinion after the fact. This is something that the manosphere, for example, discusses for over 10 years now. And yes, in Spain, they just passed a law like that is, in my opinion at least, against all Western standards of legal procedure. You should never have to prove your innocence by default. At the same time, I have to admit, however, that Spanish men are a little bit different than Central European men. When German people go to Spain, they notice that like the catcalling and all these things, they are noticeable there, whereas it's not really a thing coming from Germans in Germany, at least not something we're used to. And you also have to bear in mind that the very drastic crime or event that this law was inspired by, let's say, the perpetrators in that case were not irregular travelers. They were, according to what I've read at least, they were Spanish people. However, I also have to say that they try to roll out these kinds of laws all over the Western world, no matter what the general mentality of men or masculinity or whatever is in these countries. So that really doesn't serve as an explanation. This law is a steaming pile of BS, no matter how Spanish men behave. And of course, it goes without saying that this socialist minority government tried to introduce the whole globalist shebang, including rainbow flags and decarbonization, which just means the destruction of the European economy and purposefully throwing people into poverty without any real need for these measures, of course. So we will see what Spanish voters make out of all of this, and maybe if there is something interesting coming up, I give you a little update later. Servus, Kameraden.